This copy. All right, welcome back, folks, to Housekeeping Services. We are going to pick up and hopefully finish S-198, an act relating to regulating tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. So you can find draft 2.2 on the House, on our committee's website, and we are going to review the changes with Ledge Council and hopefully take a vote on this afternoon. So Jen, floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Jennifer Carby, Office of Legislative Counsel. I'll put the language up on the screen. So as the chair said, this is draft 2.2 of S-198, an act relating to the regulation of tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. And I'm just going to show you, I think, what's changed since the last draft we looked at. So the first change is in the tobacco wholesaler section. And based on the conversation the other day, I changed wholesale license shall be issued to may be issued by the division. It does seem that their liquor wholesaler license, although the language is framed a little bit differently, but does involve may issue and not shall.
For folks following along, that's on page 6.
Yes, page 6. And then jumping to page 8. Now we are in section 1005. This is the prohibition on purchase by minors. So first I went back and rechanged all of the instances of person to individual, talking about someone, a natural person, and got rid of some gendered language. But then in the penalty provision for someone under 21 who misrepresents their age by presenting false identification, taken out the monetary penalty language, and instead it says the person shall be offered the choice of providing up to 10 hours of community service or participating in a nationally recognized youth tobacco cessation program to be determined by the Department of Health. And I was able, with my judiciary colleagues' assistance, to get some confirmation that Judicial Bureau can still enforce even if there's not a monetary penalty.
Great. Is there any, I was just say, are there any questions on that? Go ahead.
You know, it's about the timing. So in line 4, when it says to be determined, that will happen soon, but in 3 years, someone might read it. Is it still too?
So I thought about that, but I think keeping it as,
I don't know how she pulled that off.
keeping it as to be determined allows the department to change which one it is.
All right, that's
So that was my concern, is if they determined one and then they didn't like it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be stuck. All right, next we have.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just to make sure I completely understand, so this is mandatory, but the choice is what option you choose to move forward?
Yes,
And then,
so there will be some consequence, but the choice will be community service or participating in and I think the language that had been suggested to you was enrolled, and there was some concern about that, just enrolling, so
yeah,
I
participating.
put participating.
And then if the individual doesn't do either of those, then the outcome is,
I think there are penalties for non-compliance with Judicial Bureau orders.
So, court of the order.
Yeah.
okay,
Order of the court, I swear.
okay.
And the other way around.
Cool. Just
Yeah.
want to make sure I understood that, okay.
And so I have one more question, sorry. Do we need to determine, do we need to say, I'm sure probably not, but I would like to know then about who oversees the 10 hours of community service? How do we know what we're doing if we're.
It's the existing statute, so I don't know exactly who, I mean, I think there's some
There's existing program.
Okay.
implementation of that for Judicial Bureau now.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Esme.
And sorry, this one last thing is up to 10 hours of community service could mean 1 in theory hour or something. So I just wanted
That's
to,
what the Judicial Bureau is part of. There's a whole hearing officer process. They determine the amount.
I see. So it's not in legislative statute where we should be deciding. Like,
You could.
yeah.
A current law is up to.
Give some flexibility. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be somebody's like, first
Totally.
time and it's
Yeah.
you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Just wanted to. make
10 hours for a kid is a long time.
Yes.
And the idea is to
The
have them.
wording is, it's supposed to be funny because there's something that happens before they're given the choice.
Yeah.
I assume
That's
the judicial officer says, 5 hours or you can do the program or 10 hours to do the
There's a
program.
whole hearing officer process in the Judicial Bureau statute, so I imagine that is how that
Okay.
works.
So
I guess we've never, any of us been to traffic violation process. Oh. With the exception of Representative Garofalo.
Pay it and you don't go. All right. Our next,
It seemed like there was questions over here. McGuire and Noise.
No, I just said we should switch it to push-ups.
Oh.
You can add that.
do youth physical fitness program.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
Okay. All right.
All
Let's
right.
keep going.
So our next change is actually one that happened a bit more on the outside of this room in consultations that I had with the Department of Taxes, Liquor and Lottery, and Attorney General's office around some definitions and the inconsistencies in definitions. And I do think there's a larger project to be undertaken, which is my understanding will need to be done as part of the study work directed in the bill. And I think all parties are on board with that. But just in ensuring that there is no inadvertent exclusion of or change in the way nicotine pouches are taxed based on the language in this bill that is specifically adding nicotine patches to the definition of tobacco substitute. Because the Department of Taxes taxes nicotine pouches now in their definition of new smokeless tobacco. They asked, in trying to find the least disruptive way to allow the tobacco regulation to happen in Title VII and the taxation to happen in Title 32. My suggestion that folks were amenable to is to carve nicotine pouches out of the definition of other tobacco products in the tax chapter, which otherwise includes tobacco substitutes. And since your definition of tobacco substitutes pulls in nicotine pouches, we carve it out of other tobacco products, but add it into new smokeless tobacco. And then again, there needs to be a larger effort to create consistent definitions that are used across both chapters, but there were kind of competing concerns from the Department of Taxes and the Attorney General's office if we were to take nicotine pouches, if we were to try to treat them as the way we were doing it in the bill as it came to you. So keeping them specifically in tobacco substitute for purposes of Title VII, carving them out of tobacco substitute as it's part of the other tobacco products definition in Title 32, but making sure that it is clearly in new smokeless tobacco for 32.
And just so I'm clear, even though they're going to handle this next door, that doesn't change how they're taxed.
No, that is necessary to ensure that it does not change how they are
How they're
taxed.
taxed.
Right, that is what the tax department is very concerned about. Changing the taxation, either changing the classifications now or changing it piecemeal over the course of a few different years. And so they wanted to keep the status quo for now by allowing them to continue to tax nicotine patches as they do new smokeless tobacco, which is subject to, I think, the cigarettes tax, not the other tobacco product tax.
Okay. Everybody got that?
It's not a perfect long-term solution, but it is a workable short-term solution. Okay, and then I think the only other change is this new language that I believe you looked at a version of yesterday. Is that accurate? The tobacco enforcement capacity? Looking ahead here.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I made a few, I think, just minor sort of wording changes for consistency with how we draft. So this would still have the General Assembly finding that the regulation of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, and the deceptive devices prohibited by the new section added by this act is a significant public health priority, especially with respect to protecting individuals under 21 years of age from being targeted or supplied with these products. It would have the Department of Liquor and Lottery, in consultation with the Office of the Attorney General, evaluate and report by January 15th of next year to this committee and others regarding the following. First, the number of tobacco compliance checks that the department conducted in fiscal year 2026 with respect to tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. I'll pause here for a moment. I think the language I was provided included the deceptive devices in that reporting, but because they are not prohibited until July 1st, 2026, we're out of that fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 at that
They
point.
can't report.
They can't report on something that wasn't prohibited yet.
Under.
Took it out and just did.
But I think we would like to get 2 years worth of information. So if we can say conducted in fiscal year 25 and 26, without too much of a hassle.
No. Writing implement. Maybe. Oh, there is. Yes, I can do that. And then whether the department's current enforcement staffing levels are sufficient to meet the compliance targets set in statute, in existing law, and to adequately enforce the tobacco chapter as amended by this act, including the prohibition on deceptive devices, the restriction on internet sales, and the expanded wholesale licensure requirements. Any unmet enforcement needs identified as a result of the expanded scope of regulation under this act, and whether additional staffing resources at Department of Liquor and Lottery or Office of Attorney General or both would materially improve compliance with and enforcement of Vermont's tobacco laws. So other than that, 2025. Are there any questions, concerns, changes here?
The only question I have is, I think Department of Liquor and Lottery provided some data for us, and it's whether do they track it by a fiscal year or by a calendar year? So are we getting that correct here? And I just don't remember offhand what day they testified.
This was in there, that language, the fiscal year part.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know.
probably fine.
They weighed in on that language.
Yeah.
They have.
They can, if they do it by calendar year, they'll give it to us by calendar year.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. All right. Any questions from folks? Okay.
That's it, and then the rest of it.
So what, will this be a 2.3?
It'll be 2.3 because I'll add the year and I'll take the highlighting out.
Okay.
Add the additional year.
So I would entertain a motion to approve S98 as amended, or wait a minute, it's an amendment, it's a strike all amendment, right?
Strike all amendment.
Yeah, okay. Approve S198, as we have amended it, and yeah, that's it, a motion.
So
Okay. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, the clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Bishop,
Yes.
Representative Cole,
Yes.
Representative Donahue, Representative Easties,
yes.
Representative Garfano,
Yes.
Representative McGuire,
Yes.
Representative McGill,
Yes.
Representative Nielsen, Representative Noyes, yes. Representative Steady,
Takes her a minute to unmute.
Representative Steady.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can
Now we
barely.
can, just barely.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wood,
Oh, I'm sorry, was that your vote, Representative Steady?
I'm sorry, I'd like to, is this my third time?
This is your second time.
I'd like to take advantage of my second time and say yes.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Representative Wood,
Yes.
902.
Okay, and Representative Noyes will be reporting this on the floor. I think Ways and Means have already started to take some testimony on this. No, not yet?
No, I think I'll bring it in tomorrow.
Okay. All right, I think we're all set. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, folks, just as an update on what we're doing tomorrow. Who knows? No,
Should, line, it should be right.
yeah. So we are hearing from, after the House floor, we're going to be getting update on Meals on Wheels. We understand there's some potential changes that might be coming, I'm not sure. But also given the sort of changes in, what we have funded for that over the course of the last couple of years, it'll be a good, under our oversight and accountability, getting an update from them about what's happened. So the second thing that we're going to be doing is in the afternoon, we're going to be hearing from the cannabis folks. And I feel like we were going to do something else.
Well, 243, but that's up in the air right now.
In the air, right, that's what it was, yeah.
We
So,
don't know that right now.
yeah, S 243, why don't you give the update, Ray?
Okay, so S 243, the bill that should not have been a bill, has gotten more complicated as the day goes. So that was a Vermont Language Justice Project. Approach did an amendment because we heard from Joint Fiscal that the money at the Office of Racial Equity, if you'll recall, there was money at the Office of Racial Equity that could have been used for this purpose. And apparently the appropriation language, when that while it was passed in the budget a few years ago, was not broad enough to allow that money to be used for this purpose. So appropriations did an amendment, passed out an amendment this morning, reverting $150,000 from that money and reverting that to the Department of Health to use for this purpose. And I've been working with the Office of Racial Equity and the Health Department today because our intent was to use this money more broadly, so other state agencies can access this money, and it's not just the health department. And the way the appropriations amendment has it right now, it would just be the health department that would be able to utilize the money to give it to Vermont, to contract with the Vermont Language Justice Project. So as of about half hour ago, Office of Racial Equity and the Health Department are working on language jointly to send to us tomorrow morning. That would allow for that broad use, and we will proceed from there. It's possible that appropriations will withdraw their amendment, and we'll offer a floor amendment on Tuesday with the new language that would kind of do what our intent was, to kind of have that money, that $2.3 million that was appropriated a few years ago, to be utilized for this purpose.
That when the money was appropriated, it was for a very specific, and what was the
Vital
language?
records.
Vital records. So in the budget bill that was passed in 2024, I think it said this appropriated this money only for the purpose of interpreting or language interpretation for vital records. Well, that amount of money has turned out not to be necessary for just that one specific purpose. It is necessary for the other purposes that we hear testimony about. So Ledge Council had this idea to do this whole reversion thing to essentially notwithstand that language and put 150,000 into the health department. But it didn't really solve the problem of, we wanted this, as the vice chair said, to be usable by anybody in state government to access if they needed language interpretation services. So,
For emergency vital
right,
information.
not just
not
general
for-
stuff,
yeah,
but
but
yeah,
for either natural disasters or public health.
public health,
emergency.
yeah, things like that. So,
Yeah.
so it was, so we're going to propose to JFO a different alternative process.
Was, did our colleagues on appropriations have a different policy direction they wanted to head, or did they not understand our intent?
It
Did they
wasn't
assume-
appropriations, it was a suggestion
Thanks,
actually
Jen.
by.
Thank you.
Fiscal so this was, our colleagues in appropriations and us, under the guidance of Joint Fiscal, thought that this would be the cleanest way to do what we are intending to do. And it turns out that although this is a clean way of doing it, it limits the use of the funding to only one state agency, and that is not our intent. I will say on record, though, the bill, when it came to us, that is what the initial kind of request is for the health department to have this money because they have the CDC grant, if you remember, that they used to contract with Vermont Language Justice Project. But as we heard more about what this organization does, I think it is a good policy decision to say that any state agency should be able to access them, and it shouldn't just be the health department. So I'm grateful for the health department to kind of pointing that out, that the amendment out of appropriations limited and kind of veered away from what our intent, policy intent was.
So just to be clear, we're not appropriating any new money. Want to make sure you heard that, right, Representative Steady? We're not appropriating any new money. This is all of the money that the Office of Racial Equity already has. And we're just want to change the language that will give ORE more flexibility in how that money is used for the same purpose for people who don't have English as their primary language, but for a broader purpose. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. We'll see how successful it is.
So to be clear, so we aren't doing new monies. It's coming out of their 2.3 million.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So, and have you talked to Nolan about this yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I've talked to everybody.
Okay.
I've talked to Nolan, I've talked to Katie, I've talked to Betsy. Yeah, I've talked to Robin.
Okay.
Good job.
And Jessica.
And Jessica.
Ori.
And Ori, I have not talked to,
Oh.
but Jessica has.
Okay. All right. So yes, the simple bill got complicated really quickly.
Yeah.
An update on my testimony downstairs on 9:38 this morning. It was a good opportunity for, as they're wrapping up their work, they're going to vote it tomorrow, as they're wrapping up their work to provide, a background, sort of reorienting them to why we're doing this and what the benefits are of the way that it's structured, and just kind of emphasis points on what Representative McGuire McGill said at the beginning of the process. And so I think that I have made it going line by line through 20 pages of it.
Wow.
And so far, we would be fine with any of they're very minor, sort of like, oh, we reversed a word or something, they're not anything that we would have any problems with. But I haven't gotten all the way through yet. So I'm going to continue to review that this evening and get any feedback to Ginny. Again, we're trying to avoid a conference committee on this one. So far, I think that looks feasible, let's just say. I have not checked on 660. It should be on the notice calendar.
I believe it was up today on the
It was, did they actually get to it on the calendar?
look.
And what about 657?
657.
Because that was voted out before 660 out of the committee. I mean, we have
Oh, is
solved,
that the,
657 was the omnibus DCF bill.
oh,
So there was an issue that came up on 657, pardon me?
Sorry, Madam Chair, shaking my, that was not taken up this afternoon.
No, I'm not saying it was. Six,
Still in Senate Finance.
okay.
It's been there for.
Maybe you can check in with Senator Hardy on that committee. I think she is, or with the chair. Martinez.
Senator
Okay.
Bullock is. I'll check in with them.
So if we can move that bill out of finance, because has it already been to appropriations?
Oh, I think they voted possibly today on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So there was an emerging
Walk-
issue.
Yeah.
There was an emerging issue on the restraint and seclusion provisions that we had in there, particularly highlighted by the Department of Mental Health. And as we heard this morning, the use of PRTF beds and restraint and seclusion.
601, they voted it out.
Okay, great, thank you. So the we clarified for them that psychiatric residential treatment facilities are not covered in this bill because they are regulated, they're federally regulated, and they are licensed by the Division of Licensing at Dale. So they are not covered in this. And they said, oh, they're essentially withdrawing their objections. You know, they were raising an issue and thinking that they had a problem, and it turns out not to be a problem. So that hopefully will be coming to us next week. So the other thing I wanted to chat briefly about, and I know I haven't sent it to you yet, and which is why I'm sure Mr. Chernick is here, is the resolution that we have for Representative Donahue. And since she's not watching us, I guess it's okay to say that out loud. I'm still trying to keep it a surprise for her. So I'd originally thought that we would just do it from our committee. And I want your feedback about whether we should ask for it to be an all house. As I got to thinking about, I mean, I was feeling like ownership, but then I got to think about, I'm wondering if other people would feel upset that we were not including them. So I'm,
Maybe even the 7th.
it's kind of late for that. Yeah. No, I'm not,
I
yeah.
definitely would do an all, I think.
Yeah.
I think it would
Oh,
be.
oh.
a
And for
lot of
her to
people
have
are-
all
yeah.
her peers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people, okay. All right, so Michael, we need to make it an all house.
I need to have, which is great, but I need to have an email from, remember, the all house has certain implications to it.
Yes,
That means, right, that means I need to have an email from Representative McCoy, an email from Representative Bolton, and I need to have the sign-offs, excuse me, of all the independents.
yes, with the exception of Anne, we're not going to ask her to sign. We're not going to ask her to sign.
Let's see, and I suspect we can deal with that.
Yes, okay, so can you give me that revised version, like,
How about within the next half hour?
that sounds great. And I will send it to all
And
leadership.
tell them that I really would like to see it back certainly by 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, yeah.
Terrible.
I think that will be possible. And just in terms of timing, I am,
Because, well, that means.
you're waiving the rules on this one.
Right, no, okay, in terms of Courtney, maybe not getting it till Tuesday morning. That's
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking that
I'm
we.
gonna run this by Betsy again.
Okay, so you can pass along that I'm checking with Anne and her entourage to see if she's able to come next Thursday or Friday.
It's only going to be in the calendar next week. You're going to need a rules, you're going to need some sort of a waiver on that, I think, from the rules committee.
Okay, so when you go down and talk to those folks, you can ask them about that.
I think that I think is going to be a problem, but I'm going to tell Betsy Ann, I think you may need the rules committee for that.
Well, if I knew that we were going to be here the following week, then I would wait till the following week, but I mean,
I might have Betsy Ann talk to you about that, but in the meantime,
Okay.
I'm going to go see Betsy Ann right now.
okay. Thank you, Michael.
And in the meantime, I will send you back very shortly, as all members of the House.
And I will take care of circulating it to all those people.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I started thinking that and thinking like I was being selfish.
I was thinking the same thing when Lori
Yeah.
asked you, yeah.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? I think it's 6:57, 6:60 and 9:38 that we have left in the Senate. I think everything else that's
6:57, 9:38, and what was it?
6:60.
That is all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long list of things we've done. We've done a lot of work this year. I know, especially considering when, we put out 9:38. I mean, that was a lot of work. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you back here after.